So general map of the West Indies, taken from the Library of Congress, about 1700, to give you some idea where the West Indies are, in case you didn't know. And my materials mostly pre-stamp. There is some non-pre-stamp. So there we are. So I'll start off. We'll start off with Antigua, as we're doing A to V. We'll start with Antigua. So a nice early letter, 1758, going to London at the 3 shilling rate, which is for 2 sheets. I won't talk all the time. I'll let you read some of the information yourself. And I'll try not to go too fast. I had a weeklyometer the other day when I did one for the Royal. So this is I also collect Welsh material. This is one of the things I showed the other day. So this is a Haverfordwest town mark used as a ship letter receiving mark in 1762, because they didn't actually have a ship letter mark there. And it's coming from Antigua to London, rated at 5p, which is a penny for the ship letter and 4p inland for 260 miles. Another Haverfordwest. This time, this is actually the Haverfordwest ship letter mark. I bought this in Argyle Aitken the other day when they suddenly put in some more Tudway correspondence that was unrecorded by Mary Gledhill. They found these in the house that the Tudway family still inhabit in Wells, and they found this extra correspondence in the loft. So there was a number of letters sold at Argyle Aitken, and I bought a few of the ship letter marks, including this one. So again, rated at 5p for the same rate, the ship letter penny, and 4p this time for above 80 miles. The inland rating was quite cheap at one, and then it gradually got more expensive before coming down again, obviously in 1840. But I rather like the writing on this one. It's very, very nice. And there's 4 of these Haverford ship letter strikes known. This is now the best example. And there's a few items ex Charles Freeland, and this is the one with again from Antigua with a Holyhead ship letter, and it's the only recorded example of the Holyhead ship letter on mail from Antigua from the Tudway correspondence, and it's got the Antigua type PD6 straight line marking, wide spacing of the letters, and it's used 23 years earlier than previously recorded. So that's the Holyhead ship letter is. And this time it's a penny for the captain's gratuity, and then 6p for the inland distance over 150 miles. Different Antigua mark. This time it's the PD9 straight line. As you can see, the letters are closer together and slightly bolder. And I rather like this going to the Lord Archbishop of Canterbury. The correspondence, apart from Tudway and Codrington, there's obviously correspondence coming back from the missionary people out in the West Indies. And this is a nice one to say to the Archbishop. You don't normally find them addressed to him. So it's rated at 2 shilling this time, which was for 2 sheets. So obviously had a reasonable report in it. And the writer actually is from Bahamas. Another Antigua. This is a 2-line dated mark, the PFA. Showing a little bit of the circle underneath from the hand stamp of where it struck the paper. And this, of course, this is a dated one. And dated cancels were introduced after there was complaints to Freeling of fraud, where people were denying receipt of their mail, presumably with their contract stuff in, and they will late delivery of their contracts so they could avoid maybe paying for goods. And so dated cancellors were introduced into the West Indies. This is rated 2 and 2, which was for one sheet. Government packet, 1 and 8 and sixpence, London to Edinburgh, 1804. Another Antigua straight line mark. This is the PFA again. With you can quite clearly see the date on this one, and this has been changed from 2 and 9 to 3 shillings and twopence. Again, one sheet, government packet of 2 shillings to London, and 1 shilling and twopence for London to Ireland. This letter's gone to Ireland. Some of the islands have got more material in than others because there's more available. So hence the reason Antigua is quite a long section. Another Antigua, this time a ship letter, Milford, Crown ship letter, Milford. There's only 2 examples of the Crown Milford ship letter in red recorded. Both came on both on the same date, arrived on HMS Bendow. So that's quite interesting. One was the duplicate, which was this one, and that's 2 and 6 rate, as explained there. And this is again a part of the Tudway correspondence. Moved on to Barbuda now. So this is there's an Antigua Fleur on the back, letter written from Barbuda. This includes a Cirencester penny post because it's going this time to Codrington at Cirencester. It's from the estate manager. This is 1839, rated at 2 shillings and a penny this time. So as always with this correspondence, it's very, very interesting to actually read what's inside the letter itself. Gives us a good indication of what life was like in the West Indies, or at least in Antigua at this period. What the privations they were suffering. There's also a good account of the cost of the slaves they were buying, and how they cared for them and looked after them. So Antigua mail coming in on the Falmouth packet into Falmouth. So when it arrived in Falmouth, it'd have a Leeward Islands F in green struck on the outside of the packet, as this one has, and this one's come, as it says, per man of war steamer. So it's a Tudway item again, 1843, 2 shillings for 2 sheets. So both Tudway and Codrington are the major correspondences, and both of course are very good books. Tudway by Mary Gledhill and Codrington by Robson Lowe. And this one's mentioned in the Antigua book by Freeland and Jordan, which has a nice account of the earthquake that happened in 1843. So Antigua packet letter. There's a reasonable correspondence to Jefferson in Whitehaven, mostly shipping sugar. So again, rated 2 shilling for 2 sheets. With a packet letter hand stamp. So it's illustrated in Antigua by Freeland and Jordan. It's a bit boring, really. That most of the covers to Whitehaven seem to be rather boring. Just look a bit like this, either with or without packet letter mark. Some have got the crown circle. But it's quite interesting having them from the different sugar estates. There's the one addressed to Glasgow, rated at sixpence this time, which is the half-ounce rate. We now moved into weight rates. 1858 period with the Antigua double arc on the reverse, and had a thin sheet of paper in it offering to purchase property in St. John. Somebody was keen to buy some property out there. In previous days, of course, if you tried to put a second sheet in and had it down as one sheet, it might get opened by the Crown Inspector, and you'll see some example, or at least an example later on, of how that works. And so there is a paid Antigua Crown Circle. Again, sixpence rate, showing it was prepaid, this time in red. Again, going to Jefferson at Whitehaven. Yeah, half-ounce rate. This is from 1861. Similar paid Antigua Crown Circle, this one on private correspondence to a lady in Gloucestershire. So private correspondence opposed to business correspondence is few and far between. This is from 1865, and it's annotated on the reverse number 32. So obviously she'd already received 31 letters before this one. So this one time is 1 shilling, which is for up to half an ounce, which is the rate change. So you can see that the side it says 11D near the Crown Circle, and that was the amount that got London got, and the colony got the 1 penny for the bit of postage in the colony before it went overseas. Antigua to Nova Scotia. This is paid at the 1 penny rate for prices current. It's very difficult to find a penny rate cover from this period, 1867. And I think I bought this in a study circle auction. So, Antigua English Harbour. So this is English Harbour, the A18 hard cancel, paying the 1 shilling single letter rate, going to England. And there's St. John's with the A02 barred cancel. Again, 1 shilling letter rate, going to London. I've lost a bit of the bottom of my screen because I've got all you looking at me at the bottom, but it's or looking at the material. But I think this one's an ex-Freeland one, if I remember rightly. So finally, you move on to somewhere else, Barbados. So this is a Barbados florin, not a particularly strong example, but some of them aren't. So interesting, it was originally marked at 4 and 4, which is a huge price for postage in those days, and then re-rated to 2 shilling and twopence in red. So it was taken back to be reassessed as a single rate packet letter and not a double rate letter. Going to the Wesleyan Mission House in London. And Barbados with the Falmouth packet. So there we go, Leeward Islands F-on from the Falmouth packet arriving. This is going to Sir David Milne in Musselburgh, North Britain. Very good. And it's from his son, writing how he puts to sea just before Christmas so that none of his officers can go ashore and basically have too much to drink. He takes them out to sea and keeps them sober, gets them working over Christmas. And Barbados double arc from 1843, a commercial letter going to London, paid at the 1 shilling rate, but unusually in blue. This was a half-ounce rate at this time. So mentioning sugar reaped on the thicket Fortescue Bell Mount estates, and then ordering a few tons of guano, which is saying hopefully it'll be as beneficial here as in Jamaica. So you know what they say, Steve, Jamaica's full of S. Yeah, never mind. We know. See you smiling. Very good. British Guiana is internal entire. This one's from the plant, the Hope and Experiment plant. It's heading off inland per Johnny, which Michael Hamilton reckons was a small boat that went upriver as opposed to having a slave take it up on a pony or something inland. It's gone up a river. And so it's docketed from Starbrook, which was the capital where the Dutch, when they had their occupation, until the British renamed it Georgetown, when we resumed control of British Guiana in 1812. And it's British Guiana again coming in, going to Ireland, and it's been landed at Ryde in the Isle of Wight. This is the only recorded ship letter, Ryde, Isle of Wight marking. And you can see it's been, the rating's been changed a number of times, originally charged at 1 and 6, then changed to 2 and 10. And it's had the Crown Inspector's mark in red to show that it had been examined to see whether it was, what was inside, whether it was going to be a double rate or extra rate, if they were enclosure that shouldn't have been there. Then it was re-rated to 4 shillings and twopence, and then to 4 shillings and tenpence. The extra bit at the end was because they've obviously going to Ireland instead of coming into to London. So I've written the rates, the distance rates there to show you how they came to the 4 shillings and tenpence in the end. So this was ex Derek Nathan, one of our esteemed collectors. And so another British Guiana ship letter, Gravesend, this time the step mark type. This has come from Demerara in 1827. So it's got a consignee's letter, which has a list of all the items. And if I'm able to, I'm not sure how this bit works when I'm showing it. No, it doesn't. Sorry, I apologise for that. No, where have I gone? Sorry. I do apologise. I've got no. Sorry. Bear with me. as I get back to British Guiana again. I do apologise. I've gone. I tried to bring up the lower part of the page down here. You can just about see, but I can't do it. It has all the information on about the bales of cotton and the coffee being transported. So it's charged originally one tuppence, then changed to shilling and sevenpence. So again, commercial item to Sandbach and Tyne. And British Honduras, so the Wilson correspondence, there's the Dr. Joan Harper had a large amount of this, and although I missed the sale at Cavendish, I bought a little bit of it afterwards. This is rather nice, written from Fort Monday, an Orange Walk, and he wrote home almost every few days to his mother, and again when he was in St Helena, he did the same there. That's quite interesting. Plenty of information about when the mail was getting collected or being sent, and ships arriving, who was on the ships, and what they were doing, and number of people who died from fever and things like that. So this one's got a bit of information on the General Roberts' relief of Kandahar in the Second Afghan War. All his mail came through in the diplomatic bag, so it's all posted in London. And the case service, so this is what happened was Mr. Cuthbert, who lived on St George's Quay and commuted into Belize by steam yacht, he was requested a few times to take mail for people, and he got a bit annoyed, so he decided to make himself some money to help with the cost. So he produced some little labels with case service 3 cents on them, and then they'd be cancelled with the Cuthbert Brothers straight line hand stamp and the dated mark, as this one is here. I don't know how many of the local sort of paper stamps were made. There are a number of covers, not too many. This is probably one of the better ones. I tried to buy it in the Jim Chisel sale in Grosvenor. I was outbid by Jan Berg, and when Jan Berg sold his collection, I bought it and paid less than he paid for it. So that's the way to do it, I decided. I was very happy. This is Caicos Island. So I managed to pick this up at London at Stampex a few years ago when somebody was going for a dealer's stock box, and I sort of leant over, pulled this out, and said, "I'll buy this." I won't tell you the paltry amount I paid for it, because you will all be quite envious, I'm sure. But it was thrown overboard from a ship on the way from Newport to Baja Blanca, and the bottle then arrived a couple of years later at Caicos Island, washed up on a beach, and then found by the colonial surveyor, who then very nicely put the 1 penny stamp on it just to get it sent back to London. So being a nautical person, I thought this was ideal. Of course, it's illegal these days to throw anything over the side except for comminated food stuff. So it's can't throw any bottles over anymore with plastic or glass with mail in. So it's a thing of the past. Dominica this time, Margate shiplet. I don't have too much Dominica. I think Simon's got most of it. But anyway, this is 1837 one, which is rather nice, rated at 1 shilling and 8pence. So it came in 1837. Apparently, there's quite a few vessels were lost, wrecked, and lives were lost in a hurricane around that period. And then Dominica Crown, paid a Dominica Crown Circle from the Melville correspondence. This is another reasonable size correspondence to Scotland. So this was again a 1 shilling rate, penny going to the colony, and 11 was going to England. This time I took Grenada with an extra ship letter mark, 7p, so a penny for the captain, 6p for the inland distance over 150 miles. Again, commercial mail this time, with a nice example of the Grenada Crown stamp, slightly on the reverse. And this talks about 50 barrels of Dougalstown sugar. My brother, when he said, "So what's Dougalstown sugar?" I said, "Well, it's sugar that came from the Dougalston estate as opposed to a different estate." So that was it. So it was. Another item from Grenada with a nice Beaumaris ship letter mark, again 7p, same rates as before, from 1789. Carry on the Hannah. As I collect Welsh pre-stamp postal history, so I try and get my ship letter mail coming into Welsh ports, coming in from the West Indies. So that's why you get a few ship letters. And then GB used a board in Grenada, so 2 6p lilacs, paying the shilling rate, 6p postage and 6p registration fee. This one's got some nice provenance. Now, Steve, you're not so laid back now. You've moved forward. More interesting. And then the Grenada 1861 6p rose cover. So this was this item, well, this was sent shortly after stamps first arrived in the colonies. One of the earliest letters with a stamp on from Grenada, going to Edinburgh. So 6p single letter rate for an item not over half an ounce. And then pair of 6p, again paying the single letter rate because the rate had changed at this point, so it's gone up double what it was previously. This is 1868. This time a pair of the 6p. Jamaica with a deal ship letter. This is for my friend John Jackson, who unfortunately is not with us today because he's not a member of our society. But I like this one because it was reported in Lloyd's List to say that the ship was on its way when the ship was met by another sailing vessel on the way, and they sort of spoke to each other. And that was what they did in those days. They corresponded, shouted at each other, whatever, or so that they could report back to London. They'd seen another vessel, and the other vessel was safe and on its way. So 7pence paying the penny rate, and then the inland 6p for a double rate for 74 miles. And then this is a Milford ship letter in combination with a Milford mileage mark, to London. So rated a shilling, a penny for the ship letter, and 11pence for the 277 miles inland. There's additional rate of 2pence for transmission to Castle Douglas, and then re-rated to Edinburgh with another 6pence to cover the cost. This is ex Vanderbilt, and it's been the ship was quarantined in Milford, and this has been covered in vinegar to make sure no disease was transmitted with the letter. And this is showing the Jamaica F applied the packet letter at Falmouth, rated 4 and 4, which was 2 and 6 packet rate to Falmouth, and 2 sheets inland, postage of 1 and 10 for 230 miles. And this is coming into Wales by the Montague packet, and I bought this from the Hugh Wood sale because he only had 2 items coming into Wales in his huge 2 sales that he had. One had some stamps on going in the Sandbash correspondence to North Wales, and this was a nice early unstamped entire. I thought if Hugh Wood only had 1 item coming into Wales from Jamaica, then it must be pretty scarce. Jamaica, so I've got a few here for town marks. This is a Falmouth town mark, annotated by the packet. There's 1 shilling for a ½ ounce letter, and it has been written at the top of the page, single. So it's a Foster type P2, Steve. And this one's Cartagena, and I've stuck it in because it's a transit, so the items come from Colombia via Jamaica, so it's had the Cartagena mark on put on, and then as you can see the Kingston Jamaica transit mark as it makes its way to London. So rated at 3 shilling and amended to 2 shillings and 3pence. And this one's Clarendon, rated at 2 shilling. This is a new 1 ounce packet rate to London, and then the prepaid rate of 4pence inland. And this one's Jamaica, too late for the packet. You'll see it's annotated on the bottom left of the cover, too late for packet. So it's gone on the bark rulings instead. So it's missed the packet, which is quite interesting. They've written that on the outside. So it's 8p all inclusive rate, which came in on the 7th of January 1840. And then Jamaica with a ride ship letter. This one's coming from written at Westmoreland. Again, the 8p all inclusive rate. This is the earliest recorded ride ship letter for this type. And Jamaica, this one's a Bath, from Bath to Aberdeen, which is annotated packet. It's rated at 1 shilling and 2p, which is a post town packet rate for a half-ounce letter. And Jamaica Falmouth, so another town mark. So it's going to Edinburgh, North Britain, 1847. Shilling and 2p, post town packet rate for a half-ounce letter. And all these Jamaica ones were in one lot at the one of the West Indies Study Circle auctions. And I had to persuade our good friend Graham Booth not to bid against me, which took a bit of persuading. And Dry Harbour, again, the 1 shilling and 2p all in rate. And then Claremont, which according to Foster is very rare. It's probably very rare in a really good condition strike. This is, I suppose, fairly reasonable. At least it's legible. It's got a nice Jamaica paid double arc on the front. Again, paid at the 1 shilling and 2p rate. And then Flint River, where with a Spanish town, the Flint River with a manuscript, 1856, 31st March. And this has gone to Sir Henry Berkeley, was the Governor General. So there's no obvious postal markings. So it might have been just carried free on government business or in somebody's pocket term. And then move on to Montserrat. So it's the Montserrat straight line mark N1. This is it shows a very good example of the Crown Inspector's hand stamp, which has then been crossed through. It was rated at 1 shilling and then changed to 2 shilling because it found it's a double sheet. So there's 2 sheets inside. So 8 examples of this Montserrat straight line mark known. So if you look at the Peter McCann book that he did on Montserrat postal history of Caribbean islands, you'll see a very similar one in there. And a lot of the Montserrat correspondence from this period is James Neave and the merchants in London. And this one is ex Hugh Wood. Whereas this one, which is an N1 type, is ex Charles Freeland, rated at the 1 shilling rate for a single sheet of paper. Again, part of the Neave correspondence. St Kitts inter-island to Bahamas, so paid the 4p inter-island rate. It's got a St Kitts double arc on the back, with a nice example of the Buckingham House seal. And Buckingham House, of course, became Buckingham Palace when it was sold to the Crown. So that's the 4p is the inter-island rate from 1790 to 1891, so quite a long period to have a single rate. And St Kitts GB used abroad, must be ex-Brian Brooks, I suspect. So it's gone to Reverend John Rigold at Magdalen College, Oxford, and it's been sent by his brother, who was the Bishop of Antigua. So 6p is the not over half an ounce rate. Back cancel with the Bassetiere A12 barred cancel. And one of my favourite covers, again ex-Brian Brooks, so this is a 4p rate cover, marked via St Kitts, which I think is very attractive. When Brian sold his collection, he had so many 4p rate covers, but all paid with the 4p blue St Christopher stamp. This was the only one he had paid with 4 single pennies, which is why I bought it. So it's going to the Bishop of Antigua when he was over in London, possibly at a synod or another conference at the time. St Vincent inter-island to Tobago. This is quite interesting because it's actually going to a passenger on board a schooner. So it's been sent to care of the captain. And ex-Charles Freeland, who said it was the only example of this mixed franking of 4p and 2 pennies. So it was annotated originally per French packet, and that's been crossed out. So it was carried on a British packet vessel. And rated 4p in red, you can see there, which was the inter-island rate with a penny for each end. and couldn't have St Vincent without a Duke de Polignac cover. So there's my one, which is a sixpence and two pennies. Going to France at the eightpence rate, sevenpence for the part of the king, one pence for the colony, and sevenpence for the rest of the journey. Carried on the Mersey, St Thomas, and then on the Elbe over to Plymouth. So XAX, Charlton Henry, and Charles Freeland. Charles had quite a few in his St Vincent cell, but this was the one I picked up. And the paper that's the Polignac cover, or the Polignac correspondence, that was all really thin paper, really thin. All of them are under a quarter ounce. And then Virgin Islands, this has come from St Kitts via Tortola, half the General Lee correspondence, rated at 2 shillings and twopence, so packet rate of 1 shilling and twopence, and the rate from London, a shilling inland rate. So a nice Tortola date stamp. And then another one with the different type, the second type marking for Tortola. You can see it inverted at the top left. And this is the Wesley Mission Society. It says number 51, so they've obviously written 50 letters back on how they were doing in the colony then. So again, 1847. 2 shilling and twopence rate, 1 shilling and twopence plus the inland rate of 1 shilling. And then GB used abroad. So the St Thomas was the Danish West Indies, but we had a British post office there, so I've stuck this in with that. So it's a shilling packet rate with a C51 St Thomas duplex. It looks like it's part of the Hankley correspondence. It's difficult to read with somebody who's smeared a big black pen over it. Stop you knowing it came from. But it's got a nice strike of a firm in St Thomas. And then lastly, there we are, not a dead Norwegian blue. I say I used to collect Cayman Islands. I sold my Cayman Islands, which allowed me to buy a lot of West Indies postal history spanning the whole of the West Indies. I still have some Cayman Islands. I've even bought more of it, but I kept some artwork from my original sale, and this is one of my favourite items. So the national bird of the Cayman Islands. So you get something from Cayman Islands despite the fact I haven't shown you any postal history, although I do have a bit now. Anyway, thank you very much indeed. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them, but there's no guarantees. So thank you very much. I'm now going to stop sharing. Stop share. There we are.
Thank you, James. That was a fabulous tour around some early West Indies postal history. So thank you. And questions. We could take them in the chat, but as there's less than a dozen of us, we can probably just jump on with any questions you have. I'll kick off if we can. There was one thing that struck me as you were talking about it, and I made a note, which was you mentioned the captain's gratuity several times.
Yes.
Commonly seemed to be a penny, but there was one example where it was a twopence. Was this a standard rate that captains got, or was this generally variable?
Well, when I did my royal one, I can't remember the dates now. There was the rate was, or the gratuity was increased to twopence in some GB Act, and I can't remember the year it was, but it did increase to twopence. Now I had a question with my Welsh display saying, "Oh, there was no such thing as a captain's gratuity. It wasn't there." There's a book by Rex Clark, which is it's called Rates to Reform, So it's the UK postage rate, which includes information on some ship letter material and all that. But he references the Act and that the ship letter rate was applied from or made from, and also there's a book by Robinson, not Robertson, but Robinson. That's the one. Steve's got it up. What's it called, Steve?
For the port and carriage of letters.
There we are, ports, and it mentions it in that as well. Whereas there was a previous thing that Robertson mentioned it, and somebody said, "Oh no, it's wrong. It never occurred." But it did occur. So you go to, let's say, Robinson, and also this book by Rex Clark, and I can't remember the year, sorry, but it did go up from a penny to tuppence.
My ignorance, I had no ideas about it.
Oh no.
Thank you. Has anyone got any other comments, questions, or observations from what we've just seen?
Go on, Andrew.
Yes, James. I really enjoyed the display, especially like seeing some from my own area of Grenada. So it was nice to see the covers. But I particularly liked the way you paused and allowed us to have a bit of time to read the text as well. From being on previous Zoom meetings, often you don't get the opportunity to do that because they move on too quickly. So I think that was a very nice thing to do. And thanks very much for your display. I very much enjoyed it.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, when I did my display for the Royal last week, I had on Welsh Post History, I had something called the Wheatlyometer, and Richard Wheatley would lean forward, read to his wife, obviously, and maybe point, and then sit back. As soon as he sat back, I knew I could move to the next slide. So I had the Wheatlyometer. It was very good. Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Yes, Steve?
Yes, excellent. It's spurred me to actually try and understand a bit more about ship letters. I've sort of parked it on one side because it's all a bit complicated, and I really need to get down to understanding it. But the other thing that you might be able to help me with is the inter-island rates, because some of them pay just the fourpence inter-island rate, but some of them seem to be a sort of 5p rate or even a 6p rate. Do you know sort of what happened and when?
Well, if you could pay a penny just for the postage your end to pay the penny from getting it from the town to the ship, and then the recipient would have to then pay the fourpence and the penny his end. Okay, this is the local inter-island rate. Or you could pay the sixpence, so penny at one end and the other end and the fourpence in the middle, or just the fourpence. So it's a sort of reasonably grey area, but say they had to pay a penny one end, a penny other end, and fourpence in the middle. So that's all I can say. But if you didn't pay when you posted it, so it went unpaid, your recipient had to pay the other end. But there was no double deficiency in those days. In other words, if you didn't pay the penny, the recipient had to pay tuppence. It wasn't like that at the time.
Okay, thanks.
James.
Yeah.
James,
Yes.
It's Susan. We're actually sitting in a camper van, believe it or not, on our way back from Mull. Thank you so much for doing this presentation tonight. And thank you also, Jonathan, for arranging it. If I had a question, it would be, what do you most appreciate from all of the covers you've shown us? They're all amazing. And what are you still looking for?
What I appreciate is the correspondence inside the letters. If I just showed you the correspondence, it'd be a bit boring because obviously we want to see the outside and the reasons why the mail went, but the inside is very interesting. What do I still want? Actually, yes, I covet your Lady MacLeod cover, but now there'll be other opportunities. As you
It's not for sale.
No, as you outbid me for it, David, I'm sure I can. I'll get one another day, I'm sure.
I'll tell you what,
You will sometime.
Yeah.
You will. But I understand what you mean, because actually for me, the most interesting thing is what is in those letters, because it tells us so much about what was going on in the Caribbean at that time. And I think that's quite important.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. It's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So supplementary. I've not sort of noticed ship letters get from the West Indies going into Wales. Was that a sort of frequent route, or did they sort of just happen to get landfall there by accident?
That's a very good question. Now, what happened was, of course, would be Falmouth or London would be the main receiving ports, depending on the period of time, because Falmouth was the packet letter port. And then, of course, it lost the contract for a short while to Plymouth and then got it back again. And London would be the other one. But no, don't forget the UK is very tidal. So if you've got the tide coming down the channel from east to west, and you've got bad weather blowing in from the east, the vessels couldn't get up the channel or couldn't even get into Falmouth. So you get diverted somewhere, you divert to somewhere else. So Southern Ireland or Wales would be another port. They even go around to Scotland, to Glasgow, and then even sometimes round to Edinburgh. So we're really tidal based, tidal and weather based. So that's the reason for mail not either landing at Falmouth or London. It's nearly always due to the weather and the tides. Tidals to stream around the country.
Very good. Yeah.
So you have to. I mean, if you could search back in almanacs and see what and see what the weather reports were like, things for different years or different months. But I haven't done that. But that's what it is.
Okay.
It had to be landed at the first port as well. The captain's gratuity was paid to make sure he landed his mail at the first port. So if you landed at Falmouth, your mail went to Falmouth. If you landed at Beaumaris, it went to the Beaumaris post office. You couldn't land at Falmouth and then keep it on board and then go to London and post on, because it's quicker to land the mail at Falmouth and send it overland to London. So that's the reason why it had to be the first port of call.
Thank you.
Very good.
Any other questions, anyone?
Yes, I just got one quick comment. You finished off your display with a Cayman Islands stamp with the artwork with the parrot on it. Graham Booth very kindly came and displayed his Cayman Islands for us at the Ipswich Philatelic Society. Must have been about before COVID anyway, obviously 4 years ago. And he brought some artwork along and finished off his display, obviously for the Cayman Islands, fairly modern issues. And he said, this is smart work by Jonathan Toombs, who designed some stamps for the Cayman Islands. And I said to him, that's interesting. When I next see Jennifer, I'll tell her where it is.
Okay, well, I've got quite a lot of Graham's artwork now, because I bought some of it was sold at Cavendish, and I bought all the artwork that was sold then.
Did that include some of Jennifer Toombs?
Yes.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I've got the Easter issue and two other bird issues.
Yeah, sadly, Jennifer has now passed away. She caught sepsis and died rather soon afterwards, which is a real shame. It caught all of us out. She was a member of our local society.
Wow. Okay.
So
Really?
Sadly missed. Lovely lady.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've got quite a bit of Cayman artwork that was ex-Graham. So.
Well, it's good to know that it's somewhere safe.
Right. Any other questions, anyone? No?
Nope.
In which case, then it just remains to say thank you so much for all your time. Thanks for your attendance, for getting up at 6 in the morning.
It was
Yeah,
well worth it. Thank you.
Well done.
Sterling
Thank you very
effort.
much.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And
It's daylight now.
yeah. And finally, thank you to James for some brilliant material. This
Very
is,
good.
as
Really
always,
good.
wonderful stuff. So thank you very
Well
much.
done, very good.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
We did. Rick, you
Thanks,
really did.
guys. I'm going to end the meeting now. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.